Hi guys, and welcome to another chess game analysis video. And today, our main character is, again, Andrew Tate's father, Andrew Tate. I mean, I'm bringing him again because, like I said, I think he's very underrated for the spectacular attacking games he was able to produce. It's the last game I'll bring of him for now, but yeah, let's just enjoy this game. It was played in 2001, the 2001 New Jersey Open, against a very strong North American Grandmaster from the USA, Nick the Fermion, who was rated over 2600, while Emery was rated around 2400. So, Nick started this game with e4, best by test, and Tate here replied with c5. Just like last game, we have a Sicilian defense. However, our main character now has the black pieces. So let's see how things go. Like I said before, this is one of the most common openings in chess, especially at a high level, because of its flexibility. I mean, you can either get stupidly amazing attacking positions or others that require very delicate positional play. Anyways, the game continues with knight to f3, d6, d4, takes, knight to f6, knight to c3, and again we have the most, maybe the most common branch of the Sicilian, the open Sicilian, in which the d and c files are left semi-open after this trade of the d for the c pawn, and the game is likely to have a lot of fireworks. Now, in this position, there are a lot of very good variations for black, like the dragon variation, the Scheveningen variation with d6, and the Najdorf with a6, like we covered in the last game. However, our boy Tate here decides to go for bishop to d7, the so-called Kuprchik variation. And at first sight, this might seem like it hinders black's development, and the purpose of this move is not so clear at first sight. However, it has kind of three main intentions behind it. The first is that black can futurely maybe play e5 followed by bishop to c6, put this bishop on this active diagonal, and the bishop, while being on c6, will also be able to support the typical assault of black's pawns on the queen side with a6 and b5. Now, the third and maybe most important reason really is just to get white out of opening preparation, because according to his oldest son Andrew Tate, which we all know, Emery didn't like to prepare his games or to use computers or engines, and he didn't like to study chess books. Like as far as I can see, he was a guy really fueled by intuition, and he didn't like those crazy 30 move long memorized memorization contests. So he's just trying to get his 200 rating higher than him opponent out of book as soon as possible, which is pretty wise. So Nick continued playing normally. He developed his bishop to e3, and Tate, I mean, not caring about developing his pieces, just played knight to g4. Reasonable, trying to get the bishop pair. White obviously didn't allow that and played knight to g5, further hindering black's development, as now you can't even push the pawn on e7, and so Tate just goes right on it and kicks the bishop. We have h6, we have bishop to h4. Tate continues going for the bishop. We have g5, bishop to g3, and now that the g7 square has been vacated, Tate uses it and fianchettos his bishop. White seizes the initiative and kicks black's active knight out of the d4 square, and we have a centralization of the knight to e5. Now white develops his white square bishop to e2 and red is castling, and Tate plays knight b to c6, And if white were to castle here, there would be kind of some problems. Let's put it that way. If you castle and you black would trade the knights, and I mean, as you can see by the bar, there aren't very good things for white in this position. Because after knight to f3, I mean, just a simple discover check, and there you go. You won the game in 12 moves. Good job. So, Nick, as a 2600 he is, didn't fall for this. Who would have thought? And actually played knight to b3. Now, Tate will get his queen out and castle queenside and maybe go for an attack. No, right? No? Obviously no. I mean, Tate's just Tate. He immediately goes for it and plays h5. I mean, sacrificing the pawn. Because why not? Just why not? Actually, if you take the pawn, you just die. Almost immediately, because after g4, the bishop is left stranded. And whichever way you take, I mean, let's take a look at this, for example. The issue is that the bishop lies pinned to the rook. If you take with the bishop, it is the same idea. The pawn is always pinned, and yeah, it's really no good. You in this position, you would have to resort to something like f4, but even then, I mean, just taking the bishop, black lies in a very pleasant position. So, Nick, as 2600 he is, didn't fall for the bait. Instead, he played the reasonable f3, just vacating the f2 square for whenever Tate proceeds with the attack. And as you know, Tate always proceeds with the attack, so h4 immediately, bishop to f2, and now that the knight has done its job on the e5 square, Tate plays knight to g6 with the intention of rotating it to f4 when he wants. Now, white just castles while he can, really, and Tate plays bishop to e5, you know, just putting the bishop on this awesome diagonal and putting pressure on black's dark squares, as they lie kind of weak around this king, white's dark squares. Anyways, in this position, Nick developed his queen and actually put some pressure on the g5 pawn, but Tate is Tate. He doesn't care about the pawn. He plays queen to c8. And I mean, you can probably guess where this game is headed to, right? I mean, when you have a queen and bishop medley along the same diagonal, pointed towards a very, very, very weak h3 pawn, I mean, you can probably guess what's gonna happen, right? It doesn't take a genius. And actually, if you were to take this pawn, I mean, you're in some big, big trouble now. I mean, as the engine picks up what is about to happen, I mean, after bishop to f4, you only have 2 moves with the white queen to make. And just for the sake of argument, I mean, the motive is the same, but just for the sake of argument, if you play queen to d5, the bishop just kamikaze itself. Boom, bishop to h3. Now, like, let's say if you capture this, queen captures, and this is obviously a threat, but if you try to make room for the queen, the king after the queen checks, it doesn't help. You have this typical checkmate, and yeah, it's just forced mate at that point. So, maybe it's wiser if you don't take the pawn, and try to develop your pieces or do something more productive. And so that's exactly what Nick does. And he plays bishop to e3, saying, okay, I'm not gonna cut off my queen's duties of protecting her king. Instead, I'm gonna take your pawn with my bishop. What are you gonna do about that? Tate replies, okay, I'll protect my pawn, and I mean, we can do the trade on my terms. However, that's not the best move, because in this position, white can get his knights involved, and actually with knight to d5, he kind of gets back in the game. However, in this position, Nick doesn't play knight to d5, instead he plays rook to e1, trying to put the rook on a slightly more active square. Although, I mean, you're never gonna get this break, so And I mean, this rook isn't doing all that much here, but he's trying to get it in a more active square. But yeah, it doesn't do that much. Anyways, Tate sees, okay, I only have two pieces that aren't doing anything. Yeah, so I'm gonna put one of them to work. He plays knight c2 e5, just trying to get this knight involved. The white does the same. I mean, knight to d4. This knight wasn't doing anything. However, Tate senses that all his preparations have been done, and he cannot control himself anymore. So there he goes. Boom! He just sent it. Bishop that captures on h3. We have takes. Takes. Now things are about to heat up. In this position, nevertheless, there was a very clear plan for white. I mean, sure, now that we're analyzing, we can say it's clear, but in the game, the guy is getting attacked by a 200 rated, a 200 below him rated player, so he's probably kind of nervous, and it's easy to not see these things. I mean, the first move he actually hit, he played bishop to b5, and after king f8, he had to play queen to g2 with the intention of just trading queens and fizzling black's attack. And yeah, if black wants his queen to stay on board, he would have to go queen to c1, queen to c8, sorry, and his attack would be over, and yeah, pretty much over. Anyways, after king to f8, Nick kind of started to lose a bit of the thread, and he started with bishop takes bishop, and in this case we have knight takes bishop, and now there's no longer queen g2 because the knight now covered it, and this pawn is also hanging. There's only the knight protecting. So Nick is no starting to get into a little bit of trouble here. I mean, the best move according to the engine would be something like queen h2, and yeah, just giving up the pawn and trying something here. However, Nick starts to get a little too greedy, plays rook back to f1. I mean, what is this rook doing, going back and forth? And anyways, this won't prove very fruitful, as after Tate tickles this white bishop, and the bishop retreats to d3. Tate keeps going after the king. He goes queen to g3, and after king to h1, continues going h3, almost getting to the king. I mean, I wouldn't like to be in this king's shoes. I'd be feeling a little bit too claustrophobic, I think. I mean, not the most pleasant position. Anyways, Nick, feeling desperation, decides to go for rook to g1. And now in this position, there's only one move. Only one move that guarantees black's advantage. And I mean, you can pause the video for a few seconds and try to find both the move and the idea, the main idea, and the main variations that arise after that move. But the move is queen to g2, temporarily sacrificing the queen, because after rook takes, pawn takes, this pawn is amazingly well supported by this knight. I mean, what a beautiful pawn. And then this rook just comes in and infiltrates on the first line of white, the first rank. And after the king moves, you get the queen for the two rooks, and a very, very, very infiltrated rook, which is about to help promote the pawn to a queen. Or is it? Nick obviously doesn't allow it. Plays knight to d1, getting black's rook communication with the pawn. Now you can promote. And so, since he can promote, Tate plays the best move, king to g7, opening lines for the rook to come and infiltrate and help the pawn promote the other way. However, in this position, the players are getting very low on time. The time control in these tournaments is around move 40, and when we move 30. And yeah, it's getting stressful. So the players have to blitz out some moves before time control. Anyways, in this position, white replies with knight to e2, with the idea of both adding another defender to this promotion square, and this is very important because in some lines there can always arise variations where you promote, after the king takes, you take this pawn with the knight. In this case, obviously it's defended, but you get the idea. You will take the pawn with check and fork the king and queen. So it just reinforces the guard of the g1 square. And now you'd guess Tate would play rook h8. It's the best move. However, due to time trouble, he played rook to c8 with a very clear-cut plan as well. Maybe he's gonna try to take this bishop, to trade the knight for the bishop, trade the knight and infiltrate with the rook, and also win the game that way. I mean, it's a very valid plan as well. However, there's not much white can do, really. I mean, this knight is pretty stuck here. I mean, if you try to go here and thinking, okay, I've reinforced the square and I can liberate my knight from imprisonment. I mean, he no longer needs to cut the communication. I mean, you're very wrong, because black promotes nevertheless, and after this, you'd take the knight, and the same idea applies. You can also move the queen, because then it has to safeguard this knight. However, addressing the elephant in the room, why can't white take the knight, and after takes, pick the pawn? Seems easy, right? And if that were to happen, I mean, obviously the bar goes boo. But that's not what would happen, because there's a Zwischenzug, an intermediate move. Black would be able to promote to a queen. And the same idea would apply, like I said before. So, white offered a little bit more resistance, and after rook to c8, he just passed the move b3. However, that is in no hurry. He can make his opponent suffer as long as he wants. He just passes the potato back to him. I mean, f6, just reinforcing the protection around black's king. Nick has a white squared bishop, so he's not touching black's king anytime soon. And yeah, white can't really do much besides wait around, so he just plays knight to g1, really not allowing any tricks now by promoting the pawn. And now, okay, Tate finally realizes he has to infiltrate along the h file, and he plays rook to h8. There were other ways, but that is a very simple and straightforward plan. Now, again, white can't do anything, but since the rook has left this c file, white sees the opportunity and plays bishop to c4. Tate continues with his plan. We have rook to h1, and yeah, what can white do? Plays bishop to e2, and Tate, I mean, seeing the basically the Zugzwang he created, just seizes the moment and takes another pawn. Why not? Nick thinks, okay, I mean, you took the rook, now I don't need the knight to cut communication, so let's go, let's try to activate my pieces and get back into the game. No, Tate goes back, shuts down the entire plan of Nick. Don't forget, they're in an intense time turbo right now. And Nick just goes back. However, in this position, Tate has a very interesting maneuver. He goes knight e to g6, and after bishop to c4, he goes knight to h4, overprotecting this pawn. And yeah, can you guess what's about to happen? I mean, white plays bishop to e2, because the threat was takes, and fork. I mean, this idea is present in so many lines. It's amazing how tricky these knights can be. these knights. Anyways, after knight to h4, there's a more subtle idea, and as you can take anyways, because even though the bishop now protects the f3 square, that just finishes the game in style. With knight to h3, and move 40 is reached. Move 40 is reached, but kind of in Tate's terms, as mate in 2 is forced because white's king is forced to h2, and now after there's a queen promotion, white is forced to take the knight, and we have a checkmate on the board. And Emery manages to defeat an opponent rated 200 points above him. I mean, crazy. He makes it look effortlessly. And even though there were some mistakes across the game, I mean, some were kind of subtle, and due to nerves, they are very easy to overlook something. It is very easy to overlook something. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the spotlight of another amazing game by Andrew Tate's father. And yeah, hope you guys liked it. And see you guys on the next one. Bye.